Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Ole Miss After Dark. Got a real special guest for you here, Matt Mauney from the GATA Talk podcast. Covers Georgia Southern. I listened to their latest episode earlier today where they previewed Ole Miss. Did a really great job. If you want to know more in depth about what Georgia Southern's about, what they're looking at, y'all go give their podcast a listen to. They do a really great job with it, and I've got to say, nailed Ole Miss damn near to a T. Y'all were pretty much on us as far as what to expect this Saturday. So that was a really good listen. Everybody go check that show out too. That way you can get a little bit of perspective of what people outside of Oxford think of Ole Miss. Always enjoy those kind of perspectives as well. But Matt, really appreciate you joining me here tonight, man.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So before we dive into Georgia Southern, I want to talk about Clay Helton and all that. Tell everybody about the GATA Talk podcast, what the name means, how it came about, all of that. Just kind of get people familiar with it.
Yeah, so GATA, so it's an acronym. Some people say GATA, some people just sound it out and say GATA. Stands for Get After Their Asses.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of many what we called Irkisms, coined phrases from our legendary football coach, Irk Russell, who was, a well-known defensive coordinator. He won a national championship at the University of Georgia in 1980, decided to leave Georgia and come restart the football program at Georgia Southern in 1981, won 3 national championships in the 3 FCS national championships in a 9-year span leading into 1990. And we won 6 national championships overall. Paul Johnson, former Georgia Tech head coach and Navy head coach, and now a college football Hall of Famer, is a former coach of ours as well. But yeah, Irk Russell. So, do right, GATA, get after their asses. Started the yellow school buses, which is we'd ride yellow school buses to the games, because when we started in the early 80s, we literally had nothing. Program started from nothing. You had to go buy our football at Walmart or at Kmart, the local Kmart in Statesboro, Georgia, for the photo shoot when we decided to bring the team back. But obviously had a lot of success at the FCS level. Moved up to FBS in 2014, capped off the FCS era with an upset win at Florida, beating the Florida Gators. We beat Nebraska a couple years ago in Lincoln. I was there for both of those games, so that was fun. But yeah, so that's where GATA comes from. Well-known phrase with the Georgia Southern faithful. And we started the podcast back in 2018. So we've been through 2 coaching regimes now, all of the Clay Helton era, and actually all of the previous coach, Chad Lunsford, as well. So just been doing it for a while. Have a loyal following and listenership, and just proud to serve Eagle Nation.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we want to start. Clay Helton, I've always respected him as a coach. I think he's a really good coach. I was really impressed when I saw that y'all had hired him after he'd been fired from USC, took a couple years off, all that. Comes down and takes over a Georgia Southern program. Obviously, y'all were a big triple option team there for a while, right? And that's not really Clay's style. But before we get into all of that, I thought it was really interesting that Clay Helton basically got his start at USC because of Lane Kiffin, the Ole Miss coach. He was coaching at USC at the time, and his late, great, legendary father, Monty Kiffin, was the one that recommended Clay to Lane Kiffin. I've heard both Clay and Lane talk about that relationship so far this week. Seems like there's still a great deal of respect between the 2 head coaches heading into the Saturday matchup.
Yeah, for sure. Really cool when you get matchups like this where you have that kind of close connection between coaches and families and 2 great coaching families. I mean, Clay Helton's father was great in his own right. Coaching the NFL for many years at the college level. Definitely a lot of respect there. I think a string of ties. We actually play Southern California here coming up, I believe next year, if I'm getting that right. So that'll be a fun trip to LA, and possibly a revenge tour for Clay Helton. But this one, I think going to be a lot of respect there on the sidelines, and happy to talk more about Helton and like you said, what he kind of brings to the team, because definitely a lot of changes since he came in 22. Like you said, switching from it was a spread triple option that we ran under Chad Lunsford. He kind of brought that back after veering away from it for a few years. Actually, the last time we played Ole Miss back in 2016, we were a passing attack then, but our coach at the time, Tyson Summers, was not good. It was definitely not the right. The right opportunity, not the right head coach hire at the time. We actually hung with y'all in that game early on. I actually had a first quarter lead, 14-3 for a little bit. But yeah, so after Clay Helton came in, he switched from kind of the spread option run look to an air raid system, something that he ran at USC when he took over as offensive coordinator, and then obviously continued when he took over as head coach, ran it at Memphis when he was there as offensive coordinator as well. So it's been an adjustment for the fan base because, we beat, like I said, we beat the University of Florida back in 2013 without completing a pass. And then all of a sudden, we're throwing 50 plus times in Lincoln, Nebraska, and beating Nebraska with 500 passing yards, so it's very different. Still takes some getting used to in year 3 now, but it's good. We're seeing a bit more of a balanced attack this year, but not as much as we'd like. A lot of Georgia Southern fans would like to, because we do have a deep running back room. It's something that we were able to keep and didn't lose our talent or depth to the transfer portal. So, through the first 3 games, definitely been way more pass than run, but hoping to mix in the run a little bit more.
Yeah, that's kind of like you alluded to. Clay Helton takes over in 2022. He's had a couple seasons so far, 6-6.
Yeah,
technically finishes 6-7 both times because of bowl game losses.
Yeah.
But again, like you said, there's a bit of an adjustment period when there's that big of a change in philosophy, right? You've got to give him time to get guys in there, get people bought in. I think he's going to end up doing a good job. It's funny you brought up that 2016 game, because me and you didn't even know it, but here we are 8 years later, and we were both in the same stadium at the same time watching the same game, right? Kind of funny how that works out. But I think Clay's going to do a really good job. The running back room, I'm glad you brought it up, because that's kind of where I want to start here, because just kind of going through looking at Georgia Southern's stats, I knew they had a heavy passing attack, haven't thrown an interception all year, really great job of taking care of the football, obviously. But then when I go over and look at the rushing stats, it's something we haven't seen before, right? But there's this one guy I want to ask you about, and I don't know anything about him, so maybe you can fill me in. OJ Arnold. He has only 12 attempts so far this year, but he is averaging 6.6 yards a carry. Kind of seems like somebody that maybe needs to get incorporated a little bit more. If you're going to give me 6.6 a carry, man, I'm going to start feeding it to you a little bit.
Oh yeah. No, trust me, you are preaching to the choir of the Georgia Southern fan base. We've been hearing a lot of that. So he's our running back too. Our main guy, 5th-year senior Jalen White. Definitely, NFL stature. He looks every bit of an NFL back. Had a lot of hype going into this year. Had almost 800 yards last year, missing several games due to injury. Both my co-host Cody and I thought that he was easily 1,000-yard back this year, if not like a 1,300 type back, if we could get him more carries. He is clearly still injured. and Clay Helton in the recent press conference leading up to this game against Ole Miss alluded to it really for the first time this season that like his ankle's still not 100%. So I think, a lot of fans want to see us get OJ Arnold the ball more, as well as David Bedinga, who's the third guy in line, but he's a smaller back, but he's quick. He can kind of get lost in the shuffle there and, find a hole. So, both of those guys, I'd like to see get more touches, both against Ole Miss and really moving forward.
Yeah. Medingo, they're only showing 7 carries so far this year, but again, over 5 yards a carry. If he's one of those quick, shifty backs, that's somebody that can be really useful as a change of pace to Jalen White, like you said, a guy that has a track record of being a really good running back. Obviously, you're going to keep feeding him, get him going, and then come up and switch it up a little bit with some of those smaller backs. So, Is OJ Arnold? Is he a guy that is? That's going to play this weekend? I haven't looked at any injury reports or anything like that, but he is available, right?
Yeah. Like you said, I mean, he was actually averaging I think he only had 4 carries against South Carolina State our last game, but was averaging over 10 yards a carry. So people looked at that and like, why aren't you giving him the ball more? But so as far as I know, he's ready to go. And it will be interesting because there's been a lot of fans that have been calling for like, hey, let's give him the start and see what he can do, and then we always can lean on Jalen White if we need to. Again, I think he has lost the stat. He gained a lot of weight in the offseason, gained about 20 pounds, but I don't think that ankle is 100%. He definitely is a scoring threat when we get in the red zone, especially in like short yardage situations. But I think between the 20s, I would definitely hand the ball off to OJ and Bedinga.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me shift gears a little bit. JC French is putting together a heck of a year right now. He's 68 for 110, completing almost 62% of his passes, which is a pretty good mark there. 776 yards, 6 touchdowns. But again, the thing that jumped out to me about him is how well he takes care of the football. He's yet to throw an interception, right? That's the biggest thing on the offensive side of the ball. Maybe talk about him, his play, and maybe a couple of the big targets out wide, and more or less what they try to do from a passing game standpoint, right? Are they a lot of mesh concepts, or are they trying to find seams? I mean, what can we kind of look forward to with that Georgia Southern offense?
Yeah, absolutely. So, JC French, it was somewhat of a surprise in offseason. We had a quarterback battle for the first time in 3 years under Clay Helton. So the last 2 years, we've had one and done loaner quarterbacks out of the transfer portal. So we had Davis Brand out of Tulsa last year. We had Cal Van Treese out of University of Buffalo a year before that. And like you said, turnovers have been a problem. We had 16 with Van Treese. We had 20. Led the nation last year in interceptions with Davis Brand. Led the nation in turnovers. We had over 30 turnovers. A lot of fumbles mixed in there too. Some was the responsibility of the quarterback. So, that was the key in this quarterback battle. Really had 3 guys, and Dexter Williams Jr., a transfer out of Indiana, and then David Dallas, a guy we recruited out of high school, who's been battling back from a shoulder injury, and then JC French. A lot of people didn't think French was going to get the job, but really the difference, the main factor in the reason that he got the job was really limiting turnovers. Alton said many times, in camp, I think it was 160 or so passes and only threw 1 interception in that entire span. Right?
Wow.
That's an elite ratio. So and it's certainly refreshing after the 20 interceptions Davis Brand threw last year. So like you said, through 3 games, have thrown none. Certainly there's been a few close calls, but he's being very smart with the football, which is great to see. He's not putting up video game numbers like we've seen out of like Van Treese or even Davis Brand at times last year, but that's okay. Again, I think with our running game and with just the multitude of targets and stuff we don't have to, throw for 400 yards, 500 yards every game. I think that, like 250 kind of range is like perfect. And just no turnovers and just being really efficient with the football. So, and he's also a running threat. He certainly is not, he was the 24th ranked dual threat quarterback coming out of high school a couple years ago. He transferred in from Memphis 2 years ago, but he's definitely not a like Michael Vick type. Like he's not going to run all over the place, but he can scramble, he can create. He's definitely kind of more that improviser type quarterback, which is great and something that we haven't had the last 2 years either. So definitely look for, if he's given a lane and he's not going to force something, he's going to tuck it and run. And then, you mentioned the receivers. I mean, he spreads the ball all over the field. So Dalen Cobb is, by all accounts,
that's exactly what I was about to say. Like, it looks like he does a really good job of getting multiple people involved. Just sitting there looking, you've got 7 people with at least 6 catches already this year. With a couple guys leading the way. That was another thing that really jumped out to me.
Yeah. I mean, Dalen Cobb is our wide receiver 1. He's a home run threat. 175 yards already, 2 touchdowns, so leading the team and receiving touchdowns already. And he is definitely a home run threat. Derwin Burgess has been actually with us since we were a running team, an option team back under Chad Lunsford. Primarily a blocker back then, but became our wide receiver 1, and then now it's kind of like sharing kind of those duties in targets with Dalen Cobb. Josh Dallas is a guy. He's the twin brother of David Dallas, our backup quarterback. He was. This is really his first big year that he's getting a lot of playing time, and I mean he's looking really good as well. Also a home run threat. Found kind of he's our slot guy. Found kind of a seam up the middle against South Carolina State and was just like wide open, had nothing but green grass in front of him. So he's good. LV Bunkley Shelton transfer in from Oklahoma, and then formerly before that Arizona State. He's a speedy guy, smaller guy, but also uses them in the slot, quick slants kind of a deal. Also get him involved in the screen game. And then finally, the other guy I'll touch on is Tyler Fromm, our tight end. He's the younger brother of Jake Fromm, well-known quarterback from the University of Georgia, transferred in from Auburn. Big target, got a lot of playing time at Auburn, but mostly as a blocker. Definitely getting involved in the passing game. So, definitely look out for him. Already got 6 catches for 61 yards. Still waiting on that. Or actually, does have one touchdown on the year already. So, yeah,
and that's really important for a quarterback that's going to take care of the ball. You got to have that safety net, right? A big tight end that can, get down the field, make catches, be the safety valve a little bit, and looks like he's a little bit more than a safety valve. He's averaging over 10 yards a catch as well. So that's really impressive. Josh Dallas was one of the guys that I had highlighted, obviously outside of Dalen Cobb and Derwin Burgess Jr., because kind of like you said, he's a home run. He's averaging almost 17 yards per catch. He seems to be one of those guys that if you get the ball in his hands, watch out because he can make something happen.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and then let's switch over and talk about the Georgia Southern defense. I feel like these numbers, I know these numbers are skewed to some degree because y'all ran into an absolute buzzsaw against Boise State with Ashton Jeanty, obviously, probably the best running back in the entire country. Had a really tough time containing him, but pretty much anybody in the country is going to have a tough time containing Ashton, right? But I would imagine that the big focus on this defense is trying to clean up the run game, right? Try to stop the run. You look at Ole Miss, and it's kind of weird this year for Ole Miss because we've been a predominant run team under Lane Kiffin. As weird as it sounds, everybody thinks of Lane Kiffin as this guy that wants to go out there and sling the ball around all over the place. But we finished in the top 2 in the SEC in rushing. Let me see, 3 of the last 4 years, something like that under him. Just been a really productive running team. And now we have Juice Wells and Trey Harris and Jordan Watkins and Caden Lee and Caden Prescore and all of these weapons around what I feel, and like I said, I listened to y'all show. I know you feel the same way. A quarterback that's going to end up in New York, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, in Jackson Dart. Really good offensive line in front of him as well. But Henry Parrish is a guy that can be very explosive. If you get him the ball, give him a hole, give him a lane, he can make some guys miss. A really good jump cutter. He can really change directions in a hurry. Just curious of what you think the Georgia Southern defense might try to do to just do anything to slow this Ole Miss offense down, right?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think, I mean, you nailed it with the run game. I mean, our secondary really hasn't been tested that much because, I mean, like you said, Boise State just ran at will against us. That's all they needed to do. That is their game with Ashton Jeanty. Nevada is also a running team, so we weren't really tested there. And then we played South Carolina State. So I would bring an extra guy or two every down, to be honest with you. And stack the box and try our darnest to shut down the run game and make you pass on us, and then just see what happens. It's kind of a pick your poison because, like you said, you have. I do think that even Georgia Southern fans, when they think of Ole Miss, they're thinking like just pass happy attack. But like you said, I know the running back room is super deep, so you can hurt us multiple ways. But if I was the defensive coordinator, that's what I would do. If I'm Brandon Bailey, I would just bring as much pressure as possible, stack the box, try to at least slow down that run game, make you pass on us, and hope for the best.
Yeah. So like I said, listening to your podcast, I heard y'all talk about that, about bringing pressure, trying to get Dart uncomfortable, speed things up a little bit.
Yeah.
My immediate thought was, so far this year, the thing that Dart has done best is as far as improvement goes, he's improved the most against blitzes. I think last week he was like 9 for 10 or 10 for 11 complete passes. Yeah, he's done a really good job finding the hot route, and that's where I initially went when y'all said that. And then I started thinking about it as y'all kept talking, and I thought, well, it actually makes a lot of sense. Bring more guys than we can block, speed things up, try to take one thing for sure out, which is the run game. And then if you bring enough pressure and speed it up enough, you take a second thing out, which is our deep passing game. Trey Harris leads the country and catches of 13 yards or more downfield, right? Juice Wells can run by anybody in the country if you give Dart enough time. Jordan Watkins called a 75-yard touchdown pass last weekend against Wake Forest because they didn't bring pressure. They brought 4. Dart sat back there. We ran a crossing route to confuse the DB. Safeties came up. Jordan went right by him. And so the more I thought about it, I thought, that actually makes the most sense. It's not guaranteed to work, and it may not work, but you take 2 things out of the Ole Miss playbook immediately, try to shut down the run, take away the deep ball, and then you leave your guys out there on an island. And when he goes to those hot reads, if he gets it out and he completes it, you've just got to step up and make a tackle at that point.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I'll add to that third down containment. When we get in like third 7, even like third 6 or more, we've got to find a way. I mean, even against South Carolina State, we had far too many of those where, they had a mobile quarterback and he could do some things with his feet, but, we just have not been good. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me right now, but we have not been good on third down this year. And, so if we could do exactly what you said, if you come out trying to establish a run and we can get in some of those like 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6 situations, still bring the pressure and not let up. I think even giving up, the deep ball and giving up the home run threats, that's honestly okay. What I would rather not happen is just like right to the down marker, and on slants or like a big crossing pattern of just converted 3rd and 8s and 3rd and 6s all day long.
Yeah.
That's just so frustrating as a fan. So I'm hoping that we can at least see some improvement on 3rd down containment.
Yeah. At that point, if you're going to basically sit back and let this offense operate at the tempo it wants to operate with, do what it wants to do offensively, even if we don't hit it over the top and score quickly, you're just setting yourself up for basically a death by 1,000 cuts, right? Because we'll sit there and take 5, 6, 7, 8 yards at a time and then finally bust one or something like that. So like I said, I think that's a great plan. It was a great idea. I thought about it initially, and then as y'all kept going, I thought, that actually makes a lot of sense. Put your best foot forward. Try to cause havoc. That was the word y'all used that I thought was
exactly.
So you've got to have havoc in situations like this, and anything can happen when stuff like that happens. Get through, get a hand up, tip ball goes in there. Who knows who comes down with it?
Or some bad snap or something like that. Yeah,
absolutely. So, all right, man. Well, look, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. I really appreciate you joining me here. Really good information about Georgia Southern. Really informative. I've enjoyed it. I know our listeners will. And again, everybody, y'all go check out the GATA Talk podcast. I found it on Spotify. I assume you're available on Apple and stuff like that too.
Yep.
Yeah. So y'all go check that out. They did a really good preview. I assume y'all will also do some sort of review after the game early next week or something like that too. So y'all go check them out. These guys do a really good job, know what they're talking about. Like I said, for a team that's not in the SEC, they obviously did their homework on Ole Miss because they hit the nail on the head when it came to breaking down the Rebels. So, Matt, really appreciate you joining me, man, and good luck Saturday. It should be a good game.
Yeah, appreciate it, Derek. Thanks for having me on. Hail Southern.
Thanks, buddy.